A man with hair like Wombok sporting a Cheshire grin, another with a coat made from a dead lion he punched in the face. At face value, could we pick which one is the villain? This season, the weeb Persuasion has been handed the anime adaptation of Dr. Stone, a long-running manga in Shonen Jump that has quickly gripped a massive throbbing audience over the summer of 2019. There's a reason for that. People like a philosophical quandary. Dr. Stone is the isekai that doesn't let you know that you're watching an isekai, because instead of being transported to another world where magic is real, the entire human race gets petrified for thousands of years, and begins to wake long after civilization has crumbled to the wrath of Gaia. Animals roam free. Somehow nuclear reactors haven't melted the planet, and little is left to mark the human race's existence, besides billions of stone statues that are actually people. Then Senku finally wakes up. Naturally, Mr. Wombokhead, as a scientifically minded fellow, gets a big hard-on at the thought of rebuilding it all. With science! If Bill Nye made an anime, this would be it, except there's no ice cream having an orgy. It's a shame, but I like the show anyway. If you were to lose it all in a green flash and lay dormant for thousands of years, what exactly would you lose? How much do you like your life? Do you love it? Are you even content with it? 25% of youths in America feel they have no purpose. That's 81.8 million people, and over 25% of the general population suffers from anxiety or depression. Life in the modern world is a little weird. And yet Senku is rushing to make it all happen again!
Forget.
This guy. Would you? Not
Forget.
Kim. I mean, would you make civilization happen all over again? Depression is a very real phenomenon. The real question is whether or not this lifestyle we lead is worth it. And if you had the option, would you keep it? If it was all torn down, would you build it back up? How important is that iPhone of yours to your true happiness? Civilization has gone to the balls, and its restoration is up to a couple high school kids. Prepare yourself! This is the story of modern life that was wiped away by a single green flash. Of a jacked high school kid who isn't as jacked as another high school kid, and they have irreconcilable philosophical differences. This is the story of history repeating itself, of societal folly in motion, of an anime that may or may not be a JoJo reference. This is the story of Dr. Stone. The story you never knew. What is good? What is bad? Senku would tell you that superstition is a bad thing, and so is being a simple society. In fact, the best moments of Senku's life are all him pondering up how he's gonna make society advanced again. He's got a Cheshire cat grin on his face and thinks about how exhilarated he is. He's a weird guy. He's the guy you'd expect to build a new civilization. Senku, as the protagonist, is important. He is so important that he single-handedly holds the knowledge to bring humanity from the Stone Age back to like the 19th century in just a couple episodes. He's smart and knowledgeable. His antithesis is Tsukasa. Not that Tsukasa is dumb, he's actually extremely intelligent. But he's all about keeping us as hunter-gatherers. He even dresses the part. Senku dresses his own part too. Those deerskin boots. And I mean, E equals MC squared. A little predictable. Next time, slap the quadratic formula on your clothes, okay? This philosophical difference between Team Civilization and Team Indigenous Lifestyle is the first real conflict that rears its head. It gets nasty real quick. And look, I get it. Technology is cool, it saves people's lives, and air conditioning is nice, and being able to find cute videos of cats instead of waiting around for an IRL cat to do something cute is a pretty big deal. But is Tsukasa right? If you look at history, it's been a pretty weird ride. Large-scale civilization opened the floodgates for large-scale wars, with weapons you wouldn't want exploding within 100 miles of you. Not to mention, having a job is pretty monotonous for a lot of people. In contrast, living like Tsukasa wants you to is basically just one long camping trip, which may be scary to you. But hunter-gatherer societies have much lower instances of mental illness. Tsukasa has a point. Everyone knows the best part of Minecraft is before you build your super-duper civilization. It's all about hiding in your dirt shack at night while skeletons shoot arrows at your wooden door and hanging with your homies by torchlight. Those are the best days. Tsukasa wants you to live them forever, but Senku is a helpful guy too. Thanks to science, he figured out how to de-stone people, and he even knows how to make ramen. So who's right here? Both sides feel so strongly about their will that they form their own tribes. Senku's Cheshire Cat grin is him looking like a kind of villain. Some would agree.
It's time to get excited.
You sound pretty creepy right now.
His most intense, joyful moments are all him conspiring in his head, looking like he's about to bang your mom with a bionic dildo he made with science. However, he's not the one going around murdering people. You might know that Tsukasa goes around murdering people, or at least breaking their petrified bodies so they can't be revived. Alright, it's murder. He's just trying to make his own utopia come true. But his actions are, at first glance, certainly more egregious than Senku's. Notice how I said, at first glance. Earlier, I talked about how large-scale civilizations open up the possibility of large-scale wars with scary weapons. So let's talk about it again. Tsukasa's actions, if he became king of the stone world, would, in his eyes, avoid a future where world wars mean the death of millions. His future would also breed a nature-dwelling society that is psychologically sound, at least more so than societies in noisy concrete jungles maintained through monotonous jobs. The smaller the society, the better. According to anthropologist Robin Dunbar, humans can only truly maintain stable relationships with upwards of 150 individuals. It's why the military is split up into squads. Love your brother and he will love you. It's why Twitter is such a cesspool. It's impossible to care about millions of people you don't know with big anonymous mouths hacker typing about how Splatoon doesn't have enough accessories. It's obvious that Senku is a clever fellow, but Tsukasa is oddly wise. And jacked. I still think it's dumb he killed a lion by punching it. That being said, it's not entirely correct to say Tsukasa is anti-progress. I mean, I'd punch a lion if I had to, but I'm not talking about that. While Tsukasa did make Senku vow to halt science or else, under the threat of murder, it wasn't science and progress itself he was against. Our handsome, muscular anti-hero tells a story about when he was a little boy, collecting shells on a beach until a drunk man beat him until he was unrecognizable. The little boy beater justified his actions because he had a fishing permit for the area, and Tsukasa was trespassing. This sums up the brute's hatred of modern civilization. A society that draws lines in the sand and calls it property. The great philosopher George W. Bush once said, "I know human beings and fish can coexist peacefully." How profound. The earth belongs to no one unless a person has a piece of paper saying otherwise. Just look at the east coast of the United States. Much of it is private beaches, either off limits to everyone who didn't have millions of dollars to purchase them, or you've got to pay to get in. Is that fair? In Jamaica, almost every beach is off limits to the locals thanks to resorts or high-priced private beaches. That's not fair. It wasn't until civilization evolved to the point of dense cities that ownership of property created the line between haves and have-nots. It's this dichotomy that disgusts Tsukasa enough to justify murdering every adult before they can be unpetrified. But is he wrong? What do you think? Before you tell me, let's look at Senku and Chrome. Chrome is the genius sorcerer of his tribe. He knows enough about the world around him to keep his tribe in awe of his magic. At least this kid. Throwing certain powders into a fire produces colored smoke that ooze and ahs. Chrome has a collection of minerals and various materials that allow him to do random bullshit that's kinda cool. A wizard he is. He's quite satisfied with himself. Proud of his knowledge and powers he accumulated by sheer trial and error. It's not until an unimpressed Senku arrives that the sorcerer's skills and materials are pointed towards a future. A future that will take this village from the Stone Age to about the 20th century. Yet Senku's evil grin lingers, scheming a scheme to quell his intellect's boredom rather than make the world a better place. Tsukasa may take villainous action, but he doesn't wear the face of a villain. He understands his intentions, and he lives in a world without law, right or wrong. We see him as bad because we view him through the lens of Senku, a boy who simply wants to go to space. In this way, Senku is a blind leader who works to rebuild a civilization with all its folly and monotony simply to satisfy his thirst for science. Ironically, the science man says if he were to die, the spark of human curiosity would dissect the world for centuries until knowledge rebuilt itself again. I can't say I deny that. Safe to say, most who watch Dr. Stone are rooting for Senku. But is he really the leader humanity needs? He can advance civilization more in a month than the rest of the stone world could in 10,000 years. Hell, in 2 months he may even have those talking toilets that squirt your booty hole with water up and running. But when a greedy few draws lines in the sand and burns the Amazon and squeezes the masses for everything their labor is worth, is the emptiness behind Senku's eyes symptomatic of the very folly that brought civilization to where it is now? Keep an open mind and let's find out. I was listening to a podcast once where this dude lived with an indigenous tribe for a few weeks to absorb their customs, take in their worldview, and drink their psychedelic concoctions. One of their elders told him that Westerners are like hungry ghosts. They work very hard, pride themselves on busyness, and yet there was something missing behind their eyes. Their upside-down frowns are more grins than smiles, and that's exactly what Senku's face shows, a way of being where goosebumps are felt with future schemes rather than in-the-moment dreams. That got poetic. Of course, that elder was talking about Westerners, and this is an anime from the East, but the same applies for any modern civilization these days. Civilized minds always look towards the future, while indigenous ones are focused on right now. Life for hunter-gatherers was always far more in the moment than our modern lives today. It's a state of being many try to achieve through yoga classes and maybe illicit substances. Yet for most of the last 200,000 years, anatomically modern humans have lived a life where they lived in the present most of the time. Anthropologist James Sussman says in his book Affluence Without Abundance, The Disappearing World of the Bushmen, that the Bushmen of the Kalahari Desert are so convinced they will always be able to find food and water that they never bother to store it. No agriculture, no sowing of seeds or stowing of grains or working the land as a farmer does. Sussman noted after 25 years of living amongst and learning about indigenous people that they had more leisure time than anyone with a 9-to-5. In a study done in the 1960s, most indigenous societies only work 15 to 20 hours a week gathering and preparing food and water. That includes commute time. The Bushmen's perception of time is also far different than ours. We see time as a linear series of events always moving towards the future. But they see time as cyclical and quite predictable. No energy is spent imagining hypothetical futures. The Bushmen have no word for happiness because it's not something anyone bothers to reach for. Life is so oriented towards the present that meaning is felt right now instead of hopefully once some things get done. Like Senku, civilized humans rush towards innovation, hurrying to do things faster and better. This manic way of being has brought a wealth of new creations, true miracles of the modern age, be they technology or medicine. Just look at this robot that feeds you tomatoes! Genius! Yet, life without gridded streets and honking horns makes a human want little more than companionship and sustenance. In indigenous societies, negative emotions are felt in reaction to the hardships of life, not also in a chronic gnawing overlay of lying in bed gorging yourself on spicy potato chips, watching Grey's Anatomy and crying. I mean depression. But what would it look like to bring back the lives we forgot by starting history? Over the millennia, we disconnected from the egoless soup that birthed us, making possible the ability to hurt it and ourselves, but also bringing into creation that which only a calculating mind could manifest. A price was paid to shift human perspective to a place that was cold but intelligent. We obliterated rainforests, polluted the ocean, and eradicated 10,000 species. Senku is a smart intellect in motion, while Tsukasa is a grounded mind content with living. What if both were embodied by the human race rather than just one or the other? The Cheshire cat grin that plagues the modern upright primate, the schemes we're always scheming. What is a bank account, personal assets, net worth, property value, your career, other than schemes? Is it right to live this way? Is it healthy to live this way? Could we give it up? Is it better to risk death by peeing out your butt because of dirty drinking water to be free and in the moment? Is there a happy medium we can find? Perhaps in another life, I would be speaking to you about this around a campfire while we enjoyed our catch of the day and played holographic board games, without a worry of what the next day would bring us. In my opinion, Tsukasa alone can't bring us there, and neither can Senku. But if egos were cast aside and hypothetical futures blended together to reconcile opposites, the stone world might find itself better off than the purely civilized one before it. That's my take on Dr. Stone. The story you never knew. I'm Grant. Thanks so much for watching, and shout out to our lucky patron of the week, Alyssa Johnson. Alyssa, thanks so much for your support on Patreon. We really, really appreciate it. You're making this crazy weird job possible, and thank you. With that, that's all I've got for today. Check out some of our other videos right here. Bye, everyone.